Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the booth. I'm Gabby Sparks, joined today by Luis Scott Vargas, and we're heading into this round 14. We have a really sweet match for everybody today, so let's head down to the feature match. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is round 14 at Pro Tour Kaladesh. I'm Gabby Sparks, joined by Luis Scott Vargas. And over on the left, you see Lee Shi Tian. He is from Hong Kong. He's piloting Mardu Vehicles, sitting currently at 10-3. And on the right, you will see Raphael Levy. He is from France, playing a blue-red emerge, also sitting at 10-3.
Yeah, we've seen Raph throughout the course of the weekend here. He's gotten a pretty good record, and both of these players are on the razor's edge. They can't lose again, or they won't have a great shot at making top 8.
So, Luis, can you give us a rundown of what we can expect in something like Mardu Vehicles versus a blue-red emerge deck?
In this particular case, Lee Shi Tian is the more aggressive deck. I mean, you see he's already on the board with a Toolcraft Exemplar that's probably hitting for 3 this turn if he can find an artifact.
Indeed, it is.
Yeah, the Scrap Heap Scrounger is going to make sure that Exemplar gets powered up. Whereas Raph is playing a deck with 4 copies of Kozilek's Return, 4 copies of Lightning Axe, 3 copies of Fiery Temper, and he's going to be on the defensive in this particular match, with most normal draws.
Here we can see this vehicle's deck getting a breath of new life and a lot of power, specifically in red, coming from Kaladesh. Toolcraft Exemplar and Scrap Heap Scrounger, very aggressive cards, and putting Lee at a very fast pace here.
Yeah, I mean, Lee played a 3-power creature on turn 1 and a 3-power creature on turn 2. Also happens that Scrap Heap Scrounger is very resilient. That's what the Mardu is for in this Mardu Vehicles deck. It's 2 unlicensed disintegration and in the activated ability of Scrap Heap Scrounger. So he's basically splashing black for the activated ability here.
Wow, so this is an incredibly aggressive start here from Lee Shi Tian. On the other side of the battlefield, it looks like Raph Levy has been able to discard some cards to Cathartic Reunion, but is facing down an entire army of attackers.
And of note, even though Raph did cast Cathartic Reunion on turn 2, he didn't discard any prized amalgams. He didn't discard Kozilek's Return, though in this particular case, he'd actually rather just hard cast the Kozilek's Return if he had it. Actually, Kozilek's Return here would be very good.
Unfortunately, it looks like there is none in his hand, so he's going to have to figure out a better way to deal with all these little critters now.
Well, he can bring back Stitchwing Scob, discarding Fiery Temper, Madness Fiery Temper, kill one of Lee's creatures, and still take a bunch of damage here. Also, Lee didn't play a 3rd land, which isn't great news for Raph, actually, because Lee's playing such a low-curve deck that the fact that he didn't play a 3rd land means he just has all spells in his hand, and Lee can pretty much cast all the spells in his deck, with the exception of Gideon and Depala. One cool addition out of Lee's deck, Cultivator's Caravan. It's not a frequently seen card in the Red-White Vehicles deck, but because Lee's Mardu, and he didn't actually stop at the 3rd color. He's actually splashing a 4th color. He's splashing blue for sideboarded Ceremonious Rejection.
All right, so Lee looking for permission to go to combat. Raph says okay. He's going to get in there with all his creatures.
And unopposed, this would be 3, 6, 9 points of damage, but Raph is going to be able to stop at least 3 of it if he wants to take down something like Toolcraft Exemplar.
Yeah, and this is exactly what you were talking about, the Stitchwing Scob coming back from the graveyard, discarding this Fiery Temper for its madness cost of just a mere 1.
Build your own Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt's a great card, though, so you can do worse than building a Lightning Bolt.
So currently, the Fiery Temper still in the stack.
I think we can rule out Thraben Inspector, but all the other ones are fair game because killing the Inventor's Apprentice makes sense if Raph is hoping to draw Kozilek's Return. Killing the Toolcraft Exemplar makes sense because it is
Yeah, that's exactly it. So that one's safe. That one can stay over there.
And it looks like Inventor's Apprentice is safe too. So Raph deciding whether he wants to kill the Toolcraft Exemplar, which isn't always a 3/2. Sometimes it's just a 1/1, or killing the Scrap Heap Scrounger, which of course can bring itself back. That is kind of its main feature.
Unfortunately, too, for Raph, if there weren't that clue on the battlefield, he maybe could have gone away with not taking that much damage from the Exemplar. But as it happens, it looks like Fiery Temper is going to take down that Exemplar, and Lee's going to follow it up with a Smuggler's Copter.
Lee just is not, letting up on the pressure at all. He still has 9 power in play, assuming he can crew Smuggler's Copter with something from his hand. And even if he can't, that's still 8 power. And Raph does have that Stitchwing as a blocker now, but Raph's interaction is just going to be too little and too late, which is kind of one of the drawbacks here. Raph does have an Elder Deep Fiend, though, so he can emerge it off of Stitchwing Scob to buy himself a turn, but he'll end up in a similar position the turn after.
Well, I can tell you, Luis, that there is a Scrappy Scrounger in Lee's hand, along with 2 Gideons. So, unfortunately, the Gideon's not really coming down anytime soon, though Smuggler's Copter might be able to get rid of them.
Yeah, Smuggler's Copter, of course, quite a valuable addition to any aggro deck, both because it's a 2-mana 3/3 flyer and because of the looting, the drawing and discarding ability is really, really powerful. Lets you filter out your draws, find lands when you need them, ditch excess lands. Lee even has the Mondo combo of discarding Scrap Heap Scrounger and then bringing it back. Given that Raph attacked with Stitchwing Scob, I would imagine he's planning on emerging Elder Deep Fiend. He could actually emerge Wretched Griff first if he wanted to, but that would make a future Kozilek's return a little less good. It would let Raph see an extra card.
Do you think it's worth it to try to see an extra card just given the situation? He's so far behind right now. He needs something like that.
He does, but one of the ways Raph gets back in this game is Kozilek's return, and I think maybe trying to maximize his Kozilek's return draws might ultimately be what he needs to do.
And I'm getting word that Makis Matsukas is up a game versus him and Rob Pisano.
Yeah, and Makis Matsukas, I saw him defeat Rich Hohen just a couple rounds ago in the feature match area, playing a very aggressive red-white deck, the token-based strategy with Reckless Bushwhacker.
Yeah, he's playing red-white tokens go wide. And Rob is playing Temur Aetherworks.
Rich back in the feature match area this round, which is unfortunate for him because he's playing against Shota Yasaoka, and Shota already defeated Matt Nass playing the same deck as Rich. The Grixis deck very good against the Temur Aetherworks deck.
All right, so it does look like this Elder Deep Fiend is emerging out of the Stitchwing Scob. Lands are tapped, as are the Copter and the Scrappy Scrounger. Lee is going to take that opportunity to go ahead and crack that clue since he wasn't going to be able to use that mana anyway.
And despite Lee being okay being on 2 lands the first couple turns, now it's actually getting annoying. Now he has 5 spells in his hand. He didn't draw a land off his draw step or the clue.
Yeah, he just had a Veteran Motorist.
Essentially can't do anything that turn, but it's still on Raph to find more ways to stop Lee's creatures because that Smuggler's Copter can fly over the Elder Deep Fiend. Raph really needs to, even like a hard cast Stitchwing Scob could be interesting here.
Yeah, so let's take a peek and see what's going on in Levy's hand. Looks like there's a couple mountains, an advanced Stitchwing, a Wretched Griff, and a Cathartic Reunion. So no board sweep, but he's starting to have enough mana and the action to actually provide some significant blockers.
Yeah, you could just cast an advanced Stitchwing, a 3/4 flyer for 5. I mean, that.
Look, you can do worse than that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind like 5th or 6th picking that. So if Raph plays advanced Stitchwing, he gets to block Copter with Stitchwing, he gets to block Scrap Heap Scrounger with Elder Deep Fiend and take 3 falling to 2, assuming Lee plays a vehicle to crew or plays a creature that can crew the Copter. No, he wouldn't be dead if he did that, but I think that he's going to try to go for a little bit better of an option here.
All right, so Raph is going to kick things off with a Cathartic Reunion.
And this needs to hit here because under the current circumstances, Raph needs to at least find one piece of interaction or he's dead to Lee playing a creature and crewing the Smuggler's Copter.
It looks like the 2 things being discarded are a Mountain and a Stitchwing Scob. Or an advanced Stitchwing, actually. So it's another advanced Stitchwing, a Stitchwing Scob, and a Fiery Temper.
All right, Fiery Temper does qualify, especially since Raph can do what he did last time and get back Stitchwing Scob, discarding Fiery Temper and paying the Madness cost.
All right, so a Mountain for Raph. I'm going to see a pass back to Lee.
One of the features of Lee's deck that a lot of these red-white vehicles decks don't have is that he's got Unlicensed Disintegration, which offers a little bit of reach, a little bit of actual burn.
The deck otherwise has no burn in it, correct?
Yeah, most red-white decks are playing cards like Harness Lightning and Declaration of Stone as their removal, which can't actually go to the opponent's face.
All right, so after casting the Veteran Motorist, Lee Shi Tian gets to scry. He actually liked both cards and he left them both on top. And
this is problematic for Raphael Levy here because that Smuggler's Copter is now a 4/4 off the Veteran Motorist, and as we've seen many, many times this weekend, Veteran Motorist's ability to crew a vehicle and give it +1/+1 resolves before the vehicle becomes an actual creature. So at no point can Raph Fiery Temper that Smuggler's Copter and have that work. So Raph actually falls to one with the Smuggler's Copter, can block Scrap Heap Scoundrel, Fiery Temper of the Inventor's Apprentice, and the lowly Thraben Inspector is actually going to get the last point of damage in here.
Oh, and there we see it. Yep, and that's going to do it. That is game 4. Lee, he's going to... You're going to be moving on to game 2, and we have a lot of magic lined up for you. But first, these messages.
Put what you've learned from watching the Pro Tour into action next weekend at Game Day. Test your skills and your new standard deck at a store near you. Top finishers are awarded special Game Day prizes, including full art premium promo cards and a champion playmat for the winner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to coverage of Pro Tour Kaladesh. We're going to be taking a look at our game between Makis Matsoukas versus Rob Pisano. Makis is actually sitting at 12-1.
So unless he manages to lose his last couple rounds here, all of them, he has a pretty good shot at making top 8. Given the size of this Pro Tour, it's not clear. But he's in great shape, and he's actually up a game too, so this match is even going well for him.
Yeah, Rob Pisano is also doing very well himself. He's sitting at 11-2. And quickly, before you break this down for us, Luis, I just wanted to update everybody at home. We do have a couple of game updates. It looks like Steve Rubin is up a game versus Reed Duke, and Shota Yasoka is also up a game versus Rich Hohen.
And Makis Matsoukas is trying to close out this match. He's playing a really aggressive version of Red-White. It's got a Servo Exhibition and Goblin Reckless Bushwhacker. So his deck's capable of doing a lot more damage out of nowhere than most Red-White decks.
All right, so it looks like the Glen-Ness Crane is ready to block.
Glen-Ness Crane, very good card. It provides this deck with multiple things that it needs.
Yikes. Kozilek's Return? That's Make a Stand, and it's going to protect all of Makis' creatures.
And Makis has 2 copies of Make a Stand in his sideboard, giving all of his creatures +1/+1 indestructible. So
yikes.
That's a perfect...
That's a blowout.
Yeah, not only does it counter Kozilek's Return, it also deals
takes
a
down
bunch of
the
extra
crane.
damage. Yes, and it takes down the Crane.
Well, the interesting thing, too, is that even though that Kozilek's Return, Makis gets to dodge it right now, but he still has to be able to dodge it when it eventually flashes back, so to say.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Make a Stand, though, is it actually works on both halves. I mean, you have to have a second one, but it is a lot of cards, like a card that say it prevents all damage from an instant or sorcery wouldn't work on the second half of Kozilek's Return. Make a Stand doesn't care about that. It just makes all your creatures indestructible. So that actually would work if Makis were to play a second one in response to Rob, trying to bring back Kozilek's Return.
And how many did you say that he brings in from the sideboard?
It looks like he's got 2. So.
All right.
But Rob also doesn't have an Aetherworks and actually doesn't even have 6 energy, so it's not clear that he's going to be summoning any Eldrazi anytime soon. Though, looks like Rob has another Kozilek's Return in his hand, and given that you just saw Make a Stand, I think you have a big incentive to play it right now.
And that's exactly what I think he's considering, because he's tapping 3 and untapping.
Well, the tricky part is, your opponent's got Reckless Bushwhacker in their deck, and if you play a Kozilek's Return now and your opponent goes, if Makis goes Servo Exhibition, Reckless Bushwhacker, attack for 6, you're gonna feel like things could have gone better for you.
Okay, so Cathartic Reunion discarding Emrakul, Promised Land, and an island. Ether Hub coming down.
Wow, Rob just taking a gamble here.
No longer enough mana to cast a Kozilek's Return, so just Glassblower's Puzzle Knot, and he gets the Scribe, but he will not be killing the board quite yet.
So this is the time for Makis to make his move. He's got an opening to deal a ton of damage. He just
drew another one.
Okay.
Oh, he drew a Servo Exhibition. Yeah.
Yeah, and Servo Exhibition plus Reckless Bushwhacker.
Oh, there's a Bushwhacker.
Might just be lethal.
Yikes! All right, that's going to be game for Makis. No, that's going to be...
Yeah, so now he looks like he just takes the match there, and Rob Pisano, he could have cast Kozilek's Return. He decided to amp up his energy instead, and he was on the receiving end of a bushwhacking.
That's rough. Sometimes you have to go for gambles like that, but sometimes they also don't pay off. In the meantime, we are going to return to our main match. This is Lee Shi Tian versus Raphael Levy. We're going to see the exciting conclusion between Mardu Vehicles and Blue-Red Emerge.
And Raph currently down a game here, partially because he didn't find Prized Amalgam or Kozilek's Return. So we'll see if he can find those cards a little bit more efficiently here against Lee Shi Tian's very aggressive deck. Though Raph doesn't have a ton of sideboard options here. He's got Nahiri's Wrath, which is a kind of interesting one. Discard a bunch of cards to wipe out Lee Shi Tian's board, but it's possible that he doesn't want many more sweepers than that.
It does look like he has a Kozilek's Return in hand, which could be big game. But he is somewhat flooded there.
Yeah,
he decides to take a mulligan.
It looked like a Kozilek's Return in all lands.
It might have been, yeah, just all lands in the Kozilek's Return. You can see Rafa not looking quite pleased with having a mulligan against this deck. You can't really stumble against aggro decks.
No, and Lee Shi Tian's deck is built to like optimize a really low curve. It has just a ton of 1s and 2 drops, and Raph, he, as tempted as he was to keep a hand with Kozilek's Return, there aren't very many hands where I'd mulligan Kozilek's Return and 3 lands, but when your other 3 cards are just 3 more lands.
Also other lands.
Yeah, you can't really afford to keep that.
Yeah, so what do you think happens post-board for these players?
Well, Raph maybe gets access to 2 more Nahiri's Wrath and potentially Chandra. He doesn't have a ton of different options. He also could board in Ceremonious Rejection if he was very concerned about vehicles and Scrap Heap Scroungers, but overall Raph doesn't dramatically change how his deck plays. Lee Shi Tian on the other side could also board in Ceremonious Rejection, which would counter things like Elder Deep Fiend or Wretched Griff, but they don't stop the Stitch Wings from coming back and bringing back Prized Amalgam. So both players aren't in a position of boarding in any like 10 out of 10 sideboard. Mm-hmm. They're making minor upgrades, but they're not really getting tons and tons of value.
All right, so Raph going down to 6. Let's see if he can get something playable here. Let's take a look.
Well,
He seems to like it. He has chosen to keep, and he's scrying to the top.
Oh, this looks like a good hand. It's got Kozilek's Return and Prized Amalgam, as well as Cathartic Reunion. So Raph's going to be able to Cathartic Reunion away that Prized Amalgam on turn 2 and end up in a spot where he's got Kozilek's Return on 3 and potentially, if he can find a Stitchwing Scob or an Advanced Scob, or Advanced Stitchwing rather, be able to get back Prized Amalgam fairly quickly.
So Lee off to a very quick start here. Thraven Inspector provides a clue. And those are pretty important for some of the creatures that Lee does happen to play in his deck.
Yeah, Thraben Inspector is kind of like the glue that binds this deck together in a lot of ways. A Crew Smuggler's Copter provides a clue for Toolcraft Exemplar and Inventor's Apprentice, makes it so Lee doesn't flood out. It's just a very, very good card.
All right, and we're going to see a Veteran Motorist. It's a turn 2 play for Lee. I've been very impressed with Veteran Motorist in these decks. The fact that it gets to scry 2 is so nice.
Yeah, it's a very interesting ability on a red-white aggressive card, but again, smoothing out your draw is something that all decks want, even aggressive decks. They just don't like paying for it. In the case of Veteran Motorist, you're not really paying for it.
I heard Ian talking about this yesterday. He was saying that Veteran Motorist just helps you find your vehicles too, but part of the thing too is an amateur motorist would leave cars somewhere stranded, right? But Veteran Motorist always knows where they are.
All right. I guess if that's the justification, I can buy it, but we'll just say that the red-white decks are happy playing it regardless of what the flavor reasoning is. So Raph has this Kozilek's Return. He can just wipe out those 2 creatures right now. He could potentially wait because, most red-white decks don't have ways to answer Kozilek's Return. We saw Makis Matsukas play Make a Stand to great effect last game.
Does Lee have any way to deal with it?
Lee has Ceremonious Rejection, so if you were to play something like Spire Bluff Canal, have blue mana, and then counter Kozilek's Return, that could be pretty great. But I don't know how worried Raph is about that right now.
Let's take a peek at Levy's hand. We have a Prized Amalgam, as you've mentioned. It's a crucial part to actually get the engines rolling of this deck, so to say. A Wretched Griff, Lightning Axe, Kozilek's Return, and a Nahiri's Wrath. So he does have a couple of Wraths to clean up the board if Lee tries to go too aggressive. All right, it looks like both creatures getting into the red zone. This drops the Raph down to 15.
And Raph is holding out for more cards here. He's fine taking 4 damage in order to potentially get an extra creature, and it works out. He's able to Kozilek's Return, and there we have it. Ceremonious Rejection actually did stop the Kozilek's Return. So Lee's sideboard plan of Ceremonious Rejection in his red-white-black deck
Yeah, that's
paying some
came out
dividends.
right on time. Raph does have that Nahiri's Wrath still, so he will be able to eventually take care of this, but he is taking a lot of damage in the meantime.
Sorry.
Nahiri's Wrath, a pretty interesting one for this deck, because normally the cost of discarding 3 cards, it would be pretty severe, but in a deck that wants to get its prized amalgams into the graveyard, its advanced Stitchwings and Stitchwing Scobs into the graveyard, Nahiri's Wrath is kind of like a 3-mana sweeper with upside. So, Raph the question is, does he want to discard a 3rd card to kill Thraben Inspector, or is he just killing the Veteran Motorist and the Scrap Heap Scrounger?
Okay.
And Lee was almost ready to bin all his creatures. Let's see what Raph actually wants to do, though.
I think Lee was expecting that to be another Kozilek's Return. Raph has a slightly different card here.
All right, so here comes Nahiri's Wrath, discarding the prized amalgam and the Stitchwing Scob. So this leaves the Thraben Inspector alive.
And worth noting, even though Lee has a Scrap Heap Scrounger, which can hop out of the graveyard, he doesn't currently have black mana. So his 4-color deck does not always have access to easy black mana. It just has Concealed Courtyard and Ether Hub.
Well, Gideon coming down. There you see Gideon, ally of Zendikar.
Very energetic Gideon here.
Yep. There you go. So we found the Knight ally.
Yeah.
It looks like a Cultivator's Caravan might have been the draw for Lee there. That
Not a-
does mean that he'll be able to bring back the Scrounger.
Yeah, not a bad draw at all. It provides a black source for Scrounger, like you said, and then also could potentially get crewed next turn, depending on what Lee wants to attack with. Now, Raph's in a bit of trouble here. He's got his control cards. He played turn 3 Kozilek's Return, turn 4 Nahiri's Wrath. Lee just has Gideon, and Gideon is just so much bigger than what Raph has going on, and is immune to Lightning Axe here if Lee were to animate it. Raph also needs to keep cards in hand to discard to Stitchwing Scob if he wants to bring back that prized amalgam.
Looks like he has an Island, a Wretched Griff, and a Lightning Axe in hand. Doesn't have that many good things to discard profitably. Alright, so it looks like this Cultivator's Caravan might be coming down. Indeed it is.
Lee deciding whether he wants to play Inventor's Apprentice, add another creature to the board. I mean, seeing that Kozilek's Return in the graveyard and the Stitchwing Scob coming into play end of turn, he does have some trepidation, but he still just runs it out.
Of your stuff phase. After
I mean, that's the difficult thing about playing a deck like this, is you kind of have to know when to actually go all in, knowing that you very full well could just get, your Borthra out the way the next turn. Does have a little bit of protection in the form of Gideon.
Yeah, Gideon's a great backup plan here. Though, Raph does get 6 power worth of creatures into play, so that could attack Gideon. So it's kind of critical to get that Inventor's Apprentice into play for that reason. And I think that Lee did identify that, as he wants to be able to chump block Prized Amalgam with Inventor's Apprentice, otherwise the Gideon will get attacked down. Inventor's Apprentice, affectionately called Nerd Ape. It's funny, we have, Kurt Ape and Wild Nacuddle back, Toolcraft Exemplar as playing the Wild Nacuddle role.
I dig it. Look, everyone starts off making garbage. You have to start somewhere.
I have to say, the flavor text on this set is just on point.
Oh, it's so
Fairgrounds
good.
Trumpeter is my favorite one, but Inventor's Apprentice and Quicksmith Genius.
How about Quicksmith? I was
Yeah.
about to say Quicksmith Genius.
They all describe this. I feel like they speak to me very well.
which step, yeah.
So Raph describing when he wants to use Stitchwing Scob here. As we said many times, second main phase, you do that, and then you're able to get your prized amalgam back at the beginning of the end step.
It's a tricky thing because you don't often see people doing things in your opponent's second main phase. It's usually an end step sort of
It
thing.
is not a commonly used phase, but it's something anyone who's playing with prized amalgam in their deck gets very used to saying.
Discard
Oh, so Raph actually specifically did it end step here because he didn't want the amalgam coming back because he wants to Kozilek's return off of Wretched Griff. So there is a reason for Raph to do it the way he's doing it here, which is again a thing you have to be aware of.
All right, so it looks like this Wretched Griff might be emerging out of the Stitchwing Scob in just a moment. There it is. This triggers a return. Exiled. Gets another card. Still has to figure out how to deal with that Gideon, but the rest of the creatures are now all dead.
And Prize Amalgam, you see lurking, ready to emerge. Not in the same way Wretched Griff does, but very similarly. And Raph may have to do some chump blocking here since he is at 6, and Scrap Heap Scrounger plus Gideon plus Cultivator's Caravan means that actually if Lee can find a creature to crew Cultivator's Caravan, he can just attack with Cultivator's Caravan, Gideon, and Scrap Heap Scrounger.
A quick update between the game of Reed Duke versus Steve Rubin. It looks like Reed manages to take another game, so they're pushing it to game 3.
Looks like multiple 5/5s rumbling in here.
All right, that poor Wretched Griff under the bus. Raph still holding on, but at a mere 1 life.
Toolcraft Exemplar showing up after combat, so it was not interested in crewing the Cultivator's Caravan here, though. Looks
And
like
there we
that'll do
see
it.
the handshake, and Lee Shi Tian takes this match 2-0. This puts him at
If I play on my turn.
11-3.
It's got a big round coming up. If he can win to go to 12-3 from 11-3, then the last round will be very interesting. He gets to potentially draw, potentially has to win, but either way puts himself in a good spot to make top 8.
In the meantime, we're going to be moving to Shota Yasuoka versus Rich Hoenn. So Shota is playing Grixis Control. We've seen he's got a super sweet deck, actually, and he's sitting at 11-2. Rich, on the other hand, is at 10-2-1. He's playing Temur Aetherworks.
And
Oh, look at this Emrakul on the board.
Oh, yeah. Shota actually defeated Emrakul showing up in his match against Matt Nass when they played in the feature match just a couple rounds ago, because Shota was able to Void Shatter the Emrakul, and then the Emrakul turn was not devastating.
All right, so Jason Raveler of Secrets entering the battlefield and bouncing that Emrakul.
And Rich's graveyard's off screen, so we can't quite see how many card types he has, but with 8 mana, he's got to be close to just casting Emrakul again.
All right, so Glintless Crane takes a look at the top 4.
And given that Rich cast Glintless
Might have been a
Crane,
whiff. Yeah, it was a
yeah,
whiff.
I would imagine he couldn't cast Emrakul this turn. He was actually 1 mana short of casting Emrakul.
Yeah, and if we're seeing this correctly, there is actually 3 Emrakul in Hoenn's hand.
Well, there will be no end to Emrakul's once he draws his 9th land. So actually, Rich is drawing very live here because any land lets him cast Emrakul unless it's one of the Spire Bluff Canal or Botanical Sanctums that come into play tapped. And almost any spell provides energy and gets Rich to the point where he can start using this Aetherworks Marvel. He's only at 1 energy right now.
All right, let's see. Big one.
He drew
Was it a Nulamog?
That is the most brutal part about playing this deck is you never want to draw the Eldrazi, and you sit there and...
And then you have 4 in your hand?
It's possible that Glintless Crane... Did Glintless Crane add the 5th creature type or card type to the graveyard? He was at 4 before that, but it's possible he's... The way Rich is looking, yeah, he does not have the 5th
Yeah,
type,
it looks like the things currently in the graveyard are artifact, creature, instant, and sorcery. So
he hasn't hit Vessel of Nascency or gotten a land into the graveyard.
close, but so far away.
And this game is slipping out of Rich's control here since every turn that goes by, Jace is unraveling more secrets, Shota's casting Glimmer of Genius. That thing in the ice is ticking down. You see that on the screen there. And when the last counter is removed, it turns into a 7/8 Awoken Horror. So that's going to put Rich under a very fast clock.
We're actually getting an update from Tim, who's getting the action straight from the feature match. There's already been a To the Slaughter in this game to actually take care of the first, I believe, Emrakul?
Yeah.
Or sorry, the first Ulamog. Yeah.
So So if Shota wins this game, which he's on track to do, though, there's still plenty of play. He has dealt with both Emrakul and Ulamog, resolving and having their triggers resolve.
Also, just want to point out very quickly, Shota has about 7 cards left in his deck, period.
So those painful truths and glimmers of genius are not exactly something he's in a hurry to cast tons of.
Yeah, there are actually 6 cards left.
Though maybe he'll just cast a painful truths for less than 3, or maybe he'll just cast it for 3 because he figures he can win with that thing in the ice. Who knows?
All right, big draw step, and it was not a land.
It was a contingency plan. So once again, this deck, part of the drawback of this deck is you draw these cards that just don't do that much for you. And Rich would rather, all he wants is a land, and he's drawing Ulamogs and contingency plans instead.
Shota knows how dangerous this could be because this could enable the Emrakul coming out, so he immediately negates it. And Rich is forced to pass back to Shota.
Shota's stacked up a hand of Void Shatters. He could even potentially cast Painful Truths for 1 just to get a counter off Thing in the Ice and only draw 1 card. I see 3 black sources there. Pretty difficult to cast Painful Truths for fewer than 1.
All right, so the Jace is ticking up. Shota's choosing to draw. That looks like it might be black, black, black. You might be right about that, Luis. All right, that's actually 3 different colors. Painful Truths. Triggering the Thing in the Ice.
Then he negates
And then he negates his own Painful Truths. All right, this is an Awoken Horror now. Bash.
That is not a line of play I've seen very often.
This does drop Rich down to 8, though.
Rich to another Ulamog. So far, Rich's draw steps when he needs a land are Ulamog, contingency plan, Ulamog.
This is an Eldrazi party now.
Rich with a
3
59
cards left.
converted mana cost hand.
3 cards left in his library.
Rich is an Ancestor Recall targeting Shota Yasuoka short of winning this game. If he could force Shota to draw 3 cards somehow, he might be able to take it home. But Thing in the Ice is marching forwards. Shota has multiple copies of Void Shatter in his hand. This is a pretty insane game. And, if Rich had something like Shrine of the Forsaken Gods to cast Ulamog from 8, maybe he'd have a chance, but Shota's going to be able to counter anything Rich does, and even the Emrakul trigger of taking an extra turn might not be enough.
All right, so it looks like Shota ticking that Jace up once more, playing a mountain. We're going to see a pass back to Rich, and he's drawn an Aetherworks Marvel.
Oh, Rich has just gotten the most dead sequence of draws I think that is possible in this game.
Oh my God, so here comes the Aetherworks Marvel. Looks like Shota is going to go ahead and Void Shatter that. We're going to see a pass back from Rich back to Shota. 1 card left in his library. Attack. That is the match. Shota Yasuoka takes this in 2 games. This is going to put him at 12-2. That was unreal. You can't ask for better magic than that.
Yeah, Shota winning with 1 card left in his library. Rich with 5 Eldrazi in his hand. I'm sad we missed the previous Eldrazi triggers, but yeah, that game sounded awesome.
Yeah, it did. Even the very little that we got to see of it was A+. In the meantime, we're going to move over and see Steve Rubin versus Reed Duke. So Steve is from the U.S. He's playing black-red aggro. And Reed, we've seen him a couple times in the feature match. He's playing red-white vehicles. Both players currently sit at 10-3.
We move you from the game involving Thing in the Ice and 5 Eldrazi to the game involving, a low curve aggro deck on either side. Though in this particular case, Kalitas is potentially holding off a bunch of Reed's forces, though. It looks like Reed is in the driver's seat here. Reed, a very accomplished Magic player. Multiple World Championship appearances, Platinum Pro, and frequent competitor in the top 8.
I also got word that that Chandra that you see over in the top right had to eat a lot of burn to actually go down. 2 incendiary flows, actually.
Wow. Yeah, Chandra's hard to take down, though. I feel like she shouldn't be allowed to be taken down by burn spells. I feel like she should be immune to that, but I guess some sacrifices
call a
must
flavor
be
judge.
made. Yes.
I'm gonna attack you with these creatures.
All right, so it looks like Reed is sending everybody into the red zone. DePaul's going to be triggering. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh my gosh, is it 4 lands? All right, he found a copter.
And, you know, sending those 3 lands to the bottom is still an advantage for Reed, even though he would have preferred to draw some extra cards.
Kalidas not block this turn.
Yeah, and the reason he didn't tap all of his lands is he wanted to make sure that Kalidas couldn't actually block any of the creatures. So away goes that Thopter, and all the creatures are able to get in for this turn.
Go.
That's a pretty solid hit. Getting Steve for 9 here, though. Toolcraft Exemplar is now just a 1/1 base +1/+1 from Depala. Needs another artifact before it can get a little bit larger. And we're getting the life totals updated because Steve should have, if these life totals were right, should have fallen to 10 there, and I believe Reed's still in the vicinity of 12. But we'll get that straightened out. Though Steve could have a very swingy turn here. He's got Fiery Temper and Unlicensed Disintegration in hand, and with a Kalitas out, he's gonna, if he kills every creature of Reed's that he kills, Steve does get a zombie.
Looks like on the other side, Reed with only the Smuggler's Copter, which was able to be found with Depala.
So Steve does have full information here.
All right, so it looks like Steve is just going to go ahead and pass back to Reed. We're going to see an untap from Reed, and what can he string together? Smuggler's Copter coming down.
So Smuggler's Copter can trigger the Toolcraft Exemplar, and like last turn, then let Reed sacrifice it to PNLR to make Kalitas unable to block. But the wrinkle here is that not only does Steve have a removal spell to play in response, he also will get a zombie from Kalitas.
All right, so it looks like this.
So Steve has to decide whether he wants to play Fiery Temper, which has Madness. Maybe he could utilize that Madness later, or Unlicensed Disintegration, which currently doesn't have an artifact, so it won't deal the extra 3.
It looks like he's opting for the Fiery Temper for now. This does exile the Pia.
This resolves. You have a zombie if this resolves. Yep.
And I believe Reed drew another PNLR.
Oh, he's going to go ahead and play that.
PNLR is such a perfect card for his decks. It provides, like Thraben Inspector, provides an artifact, but unlike Thraben Inspector, provides multiple bodies which help crew multiple vehicles, and you have turns like this where you can crew the Smuggler's Copter, attack, and then sacrifice the Thopter to make it so Kalidas can't block if you wanted to get in with everything. Unfortunately for Reed, he's 1 artifact short of Toolcraft Exemplar having first strike as well. You need the 3rd artifact for that. So the zombie can trade with Toolcraft Exemplar, which is not really... Oh, I guess thanks to Depala, actually,
Go to combat.
that is prevented. So actually Depala is being very relevant here, and now Reed can actually just attack with multiple creatures if he wants.
Attack you.
Yeah, it looks like that's what he's going to do. He's going to sacrifice that Thopter. Kalitas can't block. In come the creatures, and there's the handshake. Reed Duke takes this match. This puts him at 11-3.
Yeah. PNLR, great draw for Reed there, eliminating Steve's blocking potential, and Kalitas trying to stabilize there, but not quite getting there.
That's definitely one of the worst feelings is when you kill a very relevant creature, specifically it's legendary, and then they just immediately play another one. It's rough, but it happens.
Yeah, and it was the sort of thing where Steve, he's got Kalitas in play. He's like trying to scrape together a game plan. He's at very low life. You just need to get one hit in, and then it just didn't work out because of the second PNLR.
Yeah, and Kalitas is a pretty swingy card in that way because a lot of times you just get so many zombies and you get so much value. The life gain is very relevant as well. Yeah. So sometimes you can really string it together and make a comeback, and sometimes I guess Pia and the Lar just comes in and totally wrecks your plans. In any event, we have more Magic coming your way, but first, let's check in with Rich over at the news desk.
Thanks, Gabby. Thanks, Luis. Great stuff, as always, down there with 2 rounds to go. So now things are getting tight. Makis Matsoukas of Greece at 13-1 is the first seat in the top 8. May not be the first seed by the end of the day, but he's in for sure. Huge congratulations. I imagine that the Greek MTG community, it's small but very vibrant. I imagine they are going nuts roundabout now. Where are we? 5 o'clock in the afternoon here in Honolulu. It is the middle of the night in Greece, already into Sunday. So they're going to wake up tomorrow morning with some fantastic news for the MTG community there. Congratulations. Matt Nass, he's up to 12-2. He defeated Matteo More of Italy. So More at 11-3. That was his loss to give, if you like. Matt Nass at 12-2. Normally you'd think, okay, now I start thinking about intentional draws, but I'm not sure that's going to be on the table in this last couple of rounds because the top 2 seeds, remember, get through to the semi-finals tomorrow. 3 and 4 advance to stage 2 of the quarterfinals, and seeds 5 through 8 will play 4 matches tomorrow potentially if they're going to claim the title. So these last 2 rounds, desperately, desperately important. You already see what beating Steve Rubin meant to Reed Duke, who's up to 11-3. He will need to go 12-3 and then very likely win again to make it in. Pierre Dajon is 11-3 right now. And so is Tyler Hill. Haven't mentioned him so far this tournament, but at 11-3, 2 wins, you'll see Tyler Hill back on Sunday action. And Joey Manor is at 10-3-1. But with 5 minutes left on the round, matches that matter are still going on. And out on the floor to cover them is our own Brian David Marshall. BDM, what's going on?
Thanks, Rich. I'm standing over a match right now that is in Game 3 between a couple of Pro Tour champions. We have Brock Parker playing a red-white vehicles deck, playing against a Jeskai deck from Carlos Ramao. There's a Linvala in play for Carlos, a Torrential Gear Hulk. And a Dovin Bond. Wow, there are 3 veteran motorists, a couple of tokens, and a Needle Spires. 2 emblems. There are 2 emblems in play from Gideon's for Brock Parker.
Yeah, Carlos, one of the players who decided to take a fairly brave route, BDM, and choosing to go for the full-on control. We haven't seen many Dovin Barnes. We haven't seen too many Gideons around, but Ramao are very happy to do so.
There you see a Torrential Gear Hulk jumping in the way of a Needle Spires. And Carlos Ramao draws for his turn. We can get a life total check. We get a life total check.
So
Brock
Ramao
Parker
piling
was
in.
at 20 before that attack. Carlos Ramao at 19. And
That-
life totals are to change quite dramatically here.
Yes, and not just the life totals, BDM, because that empty space in the center of the battlefield is where Brock Parker's permanents want to be. That is a huge turn for Carlos Ramao.
Yeah, Carlos goes up to 25 after that fumigate. See him looking over at the clock. There are just over 3 minutes left in the round here.
Realistically, that has to be the moment at which Carlos Ramao won the game. I mean, 25 points of damage. Sure, here's a Chandra Torture Defiance for Brock Parker, and if there is a way, Brock Parker will see the way and utilize it. But he's facing 2 Planeswalkers, an opponent on 25 life. This is going to be a real struggle for the man from the Pantheon.
Chandra hits a Smuggler's Copter off the top of the deck. Yeah, Brock is using that to kill Dovin Bond. Glimmer of Genius for Carlos Ramao. He seems scrying immediately. Well, maybe not so immediately. He's going to push those to the bottom. He's going to draw one of them, push one to the bottom, draw the other, draw another card. Basically gets to look 3 cards deep there. We are just approaching the 2-minute mark here.
Worth saying, BDM, that Carlos Ramao is a very important figure in this tournament because he's one of the players in the mix who has a draw. Remember, he came into this round at 9-3-1, needing to win his next 3 to get to 37 points. And what that potentially does is really put a kink in the plans of the players on 36 who are trying to work out whether they can play or draw to squeeze their way into the top 8. So a lot of players here will actually be rooting for Brock Parker to get one of the draw players, in this case Carlos Romao, out of the mathematical mix
Rich,
for the
this is
top
a
8.
pretty big attack here. You see Carlos
There it
Romao
is.
activate 2 Wandering Fumerals, animate his Gideon, and attack. Brock Parker was at 12, and Carlos Romao takes the match. I know we have another match over here. This is a match between Elias Watsfeld and Jun Ishihara, and these guys are also in Game 3.
Right, now I'm pretty sure these are both at 10 and 3 BDM, if memory serves.
Yeah, this is table 6. This is pretty high up in the standings here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that these are both at 10 and 3, so these are both live for top 8. Elias Watsfeld on the right
So for
from
Jun, you can
Sweden.
see a Elder Deep Fiend in play. He's got a tireless tracker with 4+1/+1 counters on it. And right now, Elias is taking his Emrakul, the Promised End turn, it looks like. So Elias is tapped out here because of that Elder Deep Fiend. So he... there you see Jun Ishihara takes that match, puts his hands up in the air, triumphant. See if there's any other magic still going on as we wander across the hall. It doesn't look like there's anything else going on over here through tables 23. See a little bit of a crowd over here as time is called in the round. And I see, it's Hall of Famer Paulo Vitor Damarosa versus newly minted Hall of Famer Yuya Watanabe.
Yeah, you can see why there'd be a crowd around this one.
It's a little further down in the standings than the other tables we were looking at. This is table 31. The only other match I see going on as well, a little further down, Antonino De Rosa playing against Sean McLaren. And that seems to be it for the matches on the floor that I can see right now.
Yeah, let's stay where we are here with you for a little bit, watching these two Hall of Famers go at it. Yuya Watanabe, of course, from 2016. Paolo, good few years ago now since he was enshrined into the Magic the Gathering Hall of Fame.
Paulo is on 11. He does have a Kalitas who might have something to say about his life total, though. And Yuya Watanabe is at 16 here. You see there's an Ulamog in play, a tireless tracker. You see Tamio, field researcher. And Paulo, as soon as the field researcher gets activated, Paulo extends the hand, and Yuya Watanabe takes that match there. And there is, as far as I can tell, just this one remaining match on the floor between Antonino De Rosa and Pro Tour champion Sean McLaren. See a Chandra in play, see a Bristling Hydra in play.
So is McLaren on a pummeler deck? I guess he is.
McLaren is on 20. De Rosa is down to 9. There's a Chandra with 7 loyalty counters in play. There's a Bristling Hydra. There is a Smuggler's Copter.
Voltaic Brawler in hand for Sean McLaren. Born of the Gods champion, defeated Jacob Wilson in the final, as we see Antonino De Rosa coming in, aiming at Chandra, Torture Defiance.
So we see a Bloodhall Priest attacking alongside a Smuggler's Copter to take down the Chandra. Looks like one zombie there for Antonino De Rosa. Sean McLaren draws to the turn. He now has a pair of Voltaic Brawlers in hand. See Antonino De Rosa mugging for the camera. To be fair, he mugs when there's no camera as well.
Just in case.
You can never be sure. The state of global surveillance has gotten to the point where you should always be mugging.
So Shoti Yasuoka, remember, is up to 12-2. That's because he defeated Rich Hone. But Rich Hone at 10-3-1. You know, these 10-3-1s are stacking up. Hone is at 10-3-1. Andre Strasky is at 10-3-1. Carlos Romao, who we've just seen win, goes to 10-3-1. And Joey Manor of the United States is at 10-3-1. Somewhere in there, I think that's going to play around with the 36 to 39 pointers in the final round.
Meanwhile, back here at table 39, Voltaic Brawler has hopped in the copter and attacked Antonino DeRosa down 2-6. Another Voltaic Brawler comes down post-combat. And it looks like Sean is sitting on 8 energy there as well. Dealing with that Hydra a little tricky.
Remember that for a lot of players round about these tables in the latter rounds, they're playing to try and get to 11 and 5. 11 wins is very much the magic number because that gets you an invite back to the next Pro Tour at 33 points. Someone like Matt Costa, for example, he's at 10 and 4 right now, knowing that one win in his last 2 matches will see him back chaining multiple Pro Tours. So again, table 39 now becomes table 31 in the next round, and suddenly you're in line for an 11 and 5 finish to come back again.
Yeah, I just had a similar conversation with Sebastian Pazzo, someone who's been a big help to us doing some translations with Spanish language players. He's sitting at same thing, sitting with 4 losses, and he was like, I really need to win one of my next 2 so I can play in Dublin.
So this is one of just 3 matches remaining here in round 14, 2 to go.
I don't know where those other 2 are hiding, Rich, I can tell you that. Is there another room here?
I think there was a point before the tournament started, they thought they might need another room because there were so many players coming to play. But in the end, 466, just under the capacity for the room at 480.
So Bloodhole Priest and Kaladesh attack. Antonino gets to shoot down Voltaic Brawler. Gets to make a zombie in the process. So it's 21 for Sean McLaren. Oh, sorry, it's 11 for Sean McLaren to 9 now for Antonino DeRosa, who gets to gain a little life off that Kaladesh.
So a reminder that Makis Matsoukas of Greece leads the way on 13 and 1. At 12 and 2, you have Matt Nass and Shota Yasuoka. The 11 and 3s include Matteo More of Italy, Jun Ishihara of Japan, Tyler Hill of the United States, Pierre Dajon of France, Reed Duke of the United States, Lee Shi Tian of Hong Kong. And then on 10-3-1, Joey Manor, Carlos Ramau, Andre Strasky, Rich Hone. Still a couple of matches in, and I don't have every result in front of me right now, but that is starting to shape up the contenders for the top 8 here at Pro Tour.
So you see Sean McLaren rooting out a smuggler's copter. It was a Asian root out, and Antonino was like, I don't know what that does. I assume it kills an artifact. And now Incendiary Flow is kind of on the table there.
BDM, you know you can't see anyone else playing.
I am at table 39 right now.
That's because it's it. You're it, my friend.
So the Incendiary Flow goes at the token, and Antonino DeRosa sacrifices it to Kaladesh. And then Sean McLaren activates the Bristling Hydra, adds a +1/+1 counter, and that is the match. Sean McLaren takes it. That is it for this round of Magic on the floor. There is no Magic in this room or any other imaginary rooms left on the floor. Sending it back to you at the news desk, Rich Hagon.
All right, thanks very much, BDM. Great stuff. We like to bring as much Magic as we can, and it's matches that matter, not always for top 8, but it matters for pro points, it matters for cash, it matters for coming back again to do it all again, whether that's in Dublin or Albuquerque or Kyoto around our Pro Tour season. But waiting patiently for us over in the far side of the studio is someone who is in the thick of the top 8 hunt. We don't have long for this. It's going to be a very short deck tech. No, not a short deck tech. It's going to be a very short deck tech. Here comes Matt Nass.